would not be surprised if he winds up being the head coach at the University of North Carolina.
All right, welcome in. It is the Breer Report for December the 10th. We're coming to you from right outside of Dallas, Las Colinas, Texas, the NFL's December meeting. This is not the most eventful meeting. We have owners here. You got some personnel people who are here for the accelerator program. You have a lot of people on the salary cap side, the business side, starting to set the table for 2025 in the league, covering a bunch of topics over the next couple of days, stuff that maybe not the most interesting stuff for you. So we're going to cover things that are happening on the football field in today's Breer Report. And the first topic of discussion for us will be the Vikings champagne problem. And this is a interesting one to me because I think people have gotten really used to talking about Sam Darnold a certain way. I think it's been very difficult for him to live down his draft position, his first few years in the league, the way things went with the Jets, the way things went with the Panthers. And I think the time has come now for us to change the narrative on Sam Darnold the same way over the last couple of years the narrative has changed on Baker Mayfield. He is now 11-2 as the Vikings starter. In 11 of his 13 games this year, he has had a 100 or better passer rating. That's a triple-digit passer rating. That's a franchise record. His passer rating on Sunday was 157.9. That's a Vikings record. And he has flourished under Kevin O'Connell. You see him taking the lessons that he learned from failing with the Jets, from failing with the Panthers, from sitting behind Brock Purdy last year in San Francisco. And I think really, what the success of guys like Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold show us is how the environment that a quarterback comes into is very important, both when he's coming into the league and maybe when he's trying to reprise his career if he didn't have a great situation coming into the league. And you look at a lot of the guys who have been successful from the jump. A lot of them went into advantageous situations right away. I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have made it anyway, but those guys all walked onto playoff teams. Those guys went into established situations. Those guys were the centerpiece of Bills that had a lot of other pieces around them. And I think the advantage those guys had was massive coming into the league. Doesn't mean, again, that they wouldn't have made it anyway, but those guys had an advantage over guys like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield who, before they were a couple of years into the league, wound up going through coach firings, wound up going through GM firings. Just a very, very different thing. And so, I think that there's that piece of it that's important here is that, a lot of times a quarterback fails. It might not even be 50% his fault. It might be a lot of it might be the environment around him. And I think that was the case for Sam Darnold early in his career. So that brings us to the Vikings champagne problem, which is Sam Darnold's a free agent after this year. They've got J.J. McCarthy, who's very talented, who was ahead of schedule back in August when he hurt his knee. He's going to be coming off of 2 knee surgeries in 2025. And so how do you handle this if you're the Vikings? It's an intriguing question. I asked around to different people around the league about his worth on the open market. I had one high-ranking personnel guy say that he thought he'd get a deal in the range of $110 million over 3 years. That's almost $40 million a year. I had somebody else say that he thought he'd be commanding around $40 million a year on the open market. We'll see. And then I had a couple other people say that they feel like the Vikings should tag him. And the Vikings should delay J.J. McCarthy for another year because he's coming off an injury, because you've got a team that can win right now. And I'm still on the fence. I think without knowing what J.J. McCarthy was going to look like in September and October and November, if he had a healthy rookie year, it's hard to make the decision to walk away from somebody who is and has been as impressive as Sam Darnold has been. And we're seeing the reasons why he was the 3rd overall pick in the first place in the way that he's playing. And so, the more I've thought about this, and I was very much Kevin O'Connell's shown he can do it. You let Sam Darnold go. You hate to see him go because he's done so much good for you. And you just you trust in your system and your program to develop J.J. McCarthy and get J.J. McCarthy up to a spot where he's going to be able to play really well in his second year. Now you've played so well and Sam Darnold's played so well that I almost feel like the idea of tagging him and delaying it for another year is the right way to go. So that's a big decision to come. They don't need to worry about that right now. They're still just a game behind the Lions. If they can keep winning, could set up a monster showdown in Week 18 against the Lions that could wind up being for the NFC North title. So a lot of great stuff in front of the Vikings. But on the other end of all of that will come a pretty big decision at the quarterback position. And it's a great credit to Sam Darnold that this one is setting up to be a very difficult decision for the Vikings, because before this year, the idea was Sam Darnold would hold the fort for a year, and then we'll go with J.J. McCarthy in 2025. Our second topic for today, Bill Belichick in North Carolina. The negotiation continues. They've been in contact over the last 10 days or so. And I think a lot of people are missing the reality of the situation and why Bill Belichick would be attracted to Chapel Hill. And I think if you really look at it, and I was surprised too at the beginning when I heard about this, and is he really going to go to what is ostensibly a second tier college job? The more I started to think about it, the more it hit me that it does make some sense. Number one, I think he was shocked by the lack of interest last year from the NFL. That he was fired and that there were 6 jobs out there and that only one of those teams really showed interest in him in Atlanta. And that team was going to have a setup that wasn't going to work for him. I feel like that really sort of set him back. Like, okay, like this is not automatic. Number two, I think having the year out now has given him a chance to take the 30,000 foot view of what the rest of the league looks like, what these teams look like, what the available jobs look like. And I think now he's got a more realistic idea of what he might be dealing with. Like, is he going and working for Kevin Warren in Chicago? If he goes to New Orleans, would he have Mickey Loomis there and a bunch of people who've been there forever? If he goes to the Jets, would it be, like would he want to answer to Woody Johnson? And the reality of it is that the jobs that come open generally aren't perfect. So yeah, I mean, if the Eagles job came open, if the Cowboys job was available to him, and they had better health in that roster, would that appeal to him? Sure. Is that perfect job coming along? I don't know. And if you're him and you want to coach in 2025, are you going to take the bird in the hand or two in the bush? Are you going to take the job that you got right now, that you can have right now? Or are you going to count on the right NFL job coming along where you aren't going to be dealing with things that maybe you view as a bleep show? It's a tough thing. And so I think the college route makes some sense for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I know he's studied the college game, and he's had people around him study the college game, and the belief there is that college is moving closer to the NFL in its model. If you look at the NIL, like the salary cap, if you look at the transfer portal as free agency, there's that element of it. There's also the success of Deion Sanders, which I think is a factor for him because Deion doesn't really go out and do on-the-road recruiting. If Bill doesn't want to do on-the-road recruiting, the model's right there for him. Deion's name has carried him. I think Bill's name could carry him. And so, and I think this is a key, with a change to the NCAA's rules, which is something I heard he's really paying attention to, that allows you to have non-coaches go out and recruit. He could hire a recruiting staff to go out on the road and recruit for him, and he could hire coaches just to coach, which I think would give him an advantage over some other college teams that use some of those coaching spots to hire guys who are primarily recruiters. So I think you can go and do that and bring guys in that way. I think his name carries like Deion's name does. You'd have guys who'd want to come and play for him. And then finally, I think the speed at which he could get a college program up and running is a factor here as well. And so, like, how fast you could do it, and like how you could attract kids in by saying, yes, like, I can offer you a chance to improve your draft stock. You're going to come in here, you're going to play in an NFL type of program. The third year, fourth year guy who maybe gets his draft grade back from the committee and doesn't like it, that guy can go play for Bill Belichick, and he can stock his team with 21, 22, 23-year-old kids the same way Deion did, and say, come here, we'll be able to get this program up and running quickly. You'll improve your draft stock. You'll get to play for me and an NFL staff, and you'll be more ready for the pros. That's an attractive thing because all the kids who play at that level of college football either think or want to get to the pros. And so I think for that reason, like, the belief is like he could get a college program up and running maybe faster than he could get an NFL program up and running. So I really do believe that there's good logic behind him doing this. There's good logic behind him considering it. I think the other thing here is, like, you hope, if you're Bill, and I think the preference is still to coach in the NFL, that if there is real interest from one of these teams, they'll back channel to you and say like, hey, like don't take the North Carolina job. So it can also smoke out interest. So that's sort of my overview of the whole Belichick situation. I would not be surprised if he winds up being the head coach at the University of North Carolina. Finally, our third topic. Jamar Chase went nuts last night. Joe Burrow played great again. I think Joe Burrow is playing as well as any quarterback in the NFL. Don't pay attention to the record. The numbers are really good. He has been asked to put that team on his back and carry it on a week-to-week basis. He did it again last night. And so, I think if your takeaway from last night is, God, if you're the Bengals, don't piss off Joe Burrow. And one way to piss off Joe Burrow would be by not keeping the infrastructure around him intact. And so that brings us to Jamar Chase, who was fantastic last night. And Jamar Chase now is in line to win the Triple Crown. Only 4 receivers in NFL history have done that. The NFL's Triple Crown at the receiver position: catches, touchdowns, receiving yards. Jamar Chase leads the NFL in all 3 of those categories. And he's got enough of a lead now where it looks like he's got a real chance to just take this and run with it and not even make it close. And so, like I look at where they're at right now. I look at what Jamar Chase does for them. I look at the relationship between Jamar and Joe. And I know you've got precedence if you're the Bengals, right? You don't negotiate in season and all of that. Forget that. Go pay Jamar. Give Jamar what he wants. Get it done now. You knew this day was coming. You should have done it before the season. I understand part of this was that he did not want to do a deal before Justin Jefferson's camp slow played it, which was smart. They waited for Jamar's old college teammate, Joe Burrow's old college teammate, Justin Jefferson, to do his deal to change the market. The market has now changed. It is not going to go backwards. It is not going to get cheaper. You go and you extend the olive branch now. You break your precedent. You say, we're going to get you signed Jamar Chase. You have maybe the best receiver in football signed then. And you've got something to keep your quarterback happy. And remember, this is the franchise that lost Carson Palmer because Carson Palmer was not on board with the way that they were running things. And I know it's an old school franchise and a family that's owned it forever. And I think they're good-hearted people who want to do the right thing and want to win. Show it. Show it by going and getting Jamar Chase done. I don't think you have to wait any longer. I think other people in that locker room will understand if you break your precedent to go and sign the best receiver in football, one of the best players in football. Sign Jamar Chase if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. That'll do it for us for today. Thank you for putting up with the weird conditions here. I got a guy on a phone call behind me. I appreciate you guys coming out. As always, we'll have a mailbag episode for you on Wednesday, and then we'll be back with a Breer Report, a full Breer Report again on Friday. Enjoy the week, everybody. We will see you on Wednesday.